Teachers, what's the smartest comeback you've ever heard from a student? Story 1. We had a substitute teacher who was flipping through the yearbook and got to the senior photos. He started reading some of the superlatives out loud and went, "Ah, how sweet, Sarah, most spirited." A kid in the back immediately shouted, "Yeah, because she's always got her legs open." The substitute tried so hard not to laugh but completely lost it. Story 2. We had a really nice history teacher our freshman year. He was always in a good mood. We called him Mr. Smith. One day, we were all sitting in class waiting for the bell when one of the class clowns decided to put a condom on the doorknob. The bell rang. Mr. Smith walked in, grabbed the knob to close the door, took the condom off, looked at it for a second, pocketed it and said, "Oh, thanks, I'll be needing this later." Story 3. My history teacher spent the whole class joking around with the students. There was one kid he always picked on, but the kid never fired back, he just stayed quiet. One day the teacher, still joking, told him he needed to stand up for himself, that he couldn't stay silent forever, and ended with, "You've got to be a man. You've got to be like me." The kid looked at him and said, "Wait, which is it? Do you want me to be a man, or do you want me to be like you?" Story 4. This was during prep classes for the university entrance exam. The math teacher had simplified a really tough integral for us and asked, "This expression doesn't fit any of the standard forms we know. So in this situation, what do you think we should do?" A guy from the back of the room yelled, "Skip to the next question." Story 5. My math teacher once said, "If you don't understand something, ask. There are no stupid questions." A kid immediately shot back, "Oh, really? So do you trim your toenails with a chainsaw?" Story 6. Second year of university. One of my best friends was going through family problems. Her dad had walked out to buy cigarettes, and she hadn't seen him in over a year. She barely paid attention in class and usually answered professors rudely. One day our tutor told her, "You're old enough to behave. Do you want me to call your father?" She replied, "If he picks up, please tell him to come home soon." Story 7. There was a charity event after school, and a classmate told the teacher he couldn't stay. The teacher started yelling at him, saying he'd never amount to anything and no university would accept someone so irresponsible. Finally, he asked why the kid couldn't stay. The kid said, "My mom died yesterday and I have to go to her funeral today." Story 8. In high school, one of my teachers got into an argument with a student. At the end, the teacher asked if she should call his mom. The kid said, "Go ahead, she'll agree with me." The teacher told him to get out of her classroom. He said, "You know what? I'll call her for you." He took out his phone, called his mom on speaker in front of everyone and went, "Hi, Mom, the teacher wants to talk to you." We all lost it. Story 9. When my wife was in high school, she had a PE teacher who made her life miserable. One day they were doing aerobics. My wife finished way faster than everyone else and was just waiting. The teacher accused her of not doing the exercises at all. They started arguing. The teacher decided to call my wife's dad on speaker to embarrass her in front of the class. She told him his daughter claimed to have finished, but she didn't believe her and that she was refusing to do the workout with the others. My father-in-law, who at the time was a partner at a very successful law firm, listened calmly and said, "My normal rate is $2,700 an hour. Don't waste my time with this nonsense and don't call me again," and hung up. The teacher told everyone to keep exercising and never spoke to my wife again. Story 10. I'm not a teacher, But I had a friend in school who was super dramatic and had IBS. One day in class, she kept asking to go to the bathroom, and the teacher kept saying no. She finally said it was an emergency because of her IBS. The teacher said, "Tell me what IBS stands for and you can go." She yelled, "It means I'm 𝗧𝗘𝗔𝗖𝗛𝗘𝗥𝗦 myself," and ran out of the room. Story 11. In math class, there was a kid who always fell asleep at his desk. One day the teacher called him to solve a problem on the board. He got up, solved it perfectly, went back to his seat and fell asleep again. This happened several times, so eventually the teacher just let him sleep for the rest of the year. The kid was a math genius but couldn't care less about class. Story 12. One of my students was bullying a very shy, quiet classmate. During science class, I told her, "Be nice to him. He might be your boss one day." The quiet kid immediately said, "No thanks. I don't want to be a pimp when I grow up." Story 13. A teacher told a student he couldn't drink in class. The kid stood up, grabbed the teacher's coffee, walked to the trash can, and threw both drinks away. He got detention instantly. Story 14. A friend who's a teacher told me this one from one of his first years teaching. He was about 22 to 23. In a science class, a kid was messing around, so he told him to stop clowning and get to work. The kid replied, "I can't see you as an authority figure just because you managed to get a cushy government job for life at my age." This reminds me of something from years ago. Our teacher was explaining the states of matter: solid, liquid, gas. He said solids can be broken into smaller pieces because of their compact structure, but you can't do that with liquids or gases. I raised my hand and said, "But you can totally fart once, twice, or even 3 times. On the last day of senior year, that teacher told me it was the funniest moment he'd had in his entire career. Story 15. This happened in my German class a while back. There was a kid who always fell asleep. He couldn't care less about the language. The teacher noticed but never said anything until one day he snapped and decided to teach him a lesson. Without waking the kid, he started ranting at him super fast in a thick, hard-to-understand dialect. The kid realized the teacher was trying to humiliate him in front of everyone, so he calmly stood up and answered in perfect German, "Look, I'm sitting here quietly, not bothering anyone or interrupting your lesson. You decide to stop teaching grammar to try to make me look stupid. We all know I have no idea what you're saying, so please stop wasting everyone's time and get on with the class." The teacher was speechless. From that day on, he never spoke to the kid again. A month later, the kid passed the C1 German exam. Story 16. I'm a woman. This is relevant. I was teaching prime numbers and asked the class to give me numbers so we could check on the board if they were prime. Everyone participated except one boy who was half asleep and clearly bored. I thought I'd catch him off guard, so I said, "Mark, give me your number." He replied, "Easy, babe. We can talk after class. I'm tired right now." The whole class cracked up. I turned bright red, and yeah, I deserved it. Not to sound full of myself, but 20 years ago I was a lot younger and hotter than I am now. Some students even tried flirting with me, even though I was 7 to 8 years older than them. Totally normal teenage shamelessness, and some of the lines were actually pretty funny and innocent. Story 17. My sister was walking her preschool class down the hall to lunch. It was St. Patrick's Day, and there were green cupcakes. She joked, "Don't eat too many, or you'll turn green." A little black kid looked up at her and said, "Miss, then how come I'm brown if I never eat chocolate cupcakes?" Story 18. This literally happened yesterday in one of my English classes. We're a very tight group and always tease each other, no bad blood. And we have a native speaker teacher who's hilarious but sometimes misses Spanish jokes because his Spanish isn't perfect. Anyway, one girl suddenly got the giggles and couldn't stop laughing for no reason. The teacher asked what was wrong. She laughed even harder and finally managed to say, "I don't know how to say El Pavo in English." We all died laughing. Story 19. We had a very proud, extremely strict teacher who was always threatening to call our parents if we misbehaved, but she stopped after one kid made her look stupid. One day she told a noisy boy, "What would your mother say if I called home right now?" He answered without missing a beat, she'd say hello." She never threatened to call home again. Story 20. A friend told me this. His history teacher called the mom of a kid who was sleeping in class. The teacher had all the parents' numbers from the beginning of the year. The school was mostly black students, and this kid apparently had one of those super strict moms. The teacher didn't even wake the kid up, just called the mom, told her son was sleeping, and asked if she wanted to speak to him. He put the phone to the sleeping kid's ear, and the mom started screaming, so loud you could hear her in the hallway. The poor kid nearly fell out of his chair from the shock. Story 21. Not a teacher, but this happened in an advanced French class where we were only allowed to speak French. Speaking Spanish got you kicked out. My best friend showed up a few minutes late to an exam, so the teacher wouldn't let him take it. My friend looked at him and said in Spanish, "There's no point in not letting me in. I'm not going to sit here waiting for everyone else to finish." The teacher got mad and answered in Spanish, "What did you just say?" My friend switched to perfect French. "What are you doing speaking Spanish in French class? You're supposed to set an example. I'm just a student. I can get away with it. Anyway, I'm already in trouble. It can't get worse." He got suspended for a week. Total legend move. Story 22. In high school Spanish class, two kids who grew up in Latino families were messing around at the back. One claimed he could hold another person's weight standing on his stomach. The other guy, almost 100 kilograms, said no way. So the first kid lay down on the floor, the heavy one stood on his stomach, and they just stayed like that. The teacher saw it and yelled at the kid on the floor, "Get back to your seat and stop fooling around." Without moving, the kid on the floor said, "I have some pretty heavy reasons not to move right now." The whole class lost it. The situation was absurd. The heavy kid didn't move because the teacher hadn't told him to, and the teacher was getting madder because the kid on the floor wouldn't obey. Total chaos. And how the hell was he even talking with 100 kilograms on his stomach?